Good morning, everyone. Lawrence Fleming here again. Well, I did an update on my editing software on this phone, and it gives me the ability to add pictures. So I'm borrowing a timeline. Brenda Weltner is doing a good job of outlining everything. They're mowing the lawn in the next campsite over. I can hear it. Hopefully it's not too annoying. They mow the lawn constantly here. Yep. And we got a lot of people in camp, so I don't have as many places to go sit down and talk. So anyhow, we'll continue on. Anyway, Brenda Weltner has a paper that she put out, Kingdom of Priests, I think it is. And you can either get it on Amazon or you can download a PDF, I think. I highly recommend you getting it. Yeah, she did try to predict in the early parts of her channel, and so did Barry On, and so did a bunch of other people. They're trying to predict the rapture. You're not going to predict it. It's not tied to a Jewish event. Now, there's Jewish events that are waiting to be triggered, but it's got nothing to do with the rapture. It's got to do with Satan casting his angels down here. It's got to do with the Revelation 12 sign. But it's not an immediate thing. You can't pick a day. And it's got nothing to do with the verse that says you won't know the day or the hour. That's the second coming. There's so much historical teachings on this book of Revelation that they've been taught for this way for 200 or 300 years. And they're wrong because they really didn't research it. They've taught that there's a linear account, and every time they try to do the linear account, it's, the seals happen and then the trumpets and then the bowls, and they try to do that, it doesn't work. And they throw up their hands, they go, okay, well, I'm teaching it this way because that's where everybody else did, and they don't do any more research. Well, people like Barry Ah, who's doing his throughout history timelines, which are very good and very accurate, and Brenda, who's gone back in and restudied Revelations, and of course you got to pull in all the other books that talk about it. Revelation is basically a summary of the rest of the Bible that talks about the prophetic times. So, and until 1948, there was really no need to look any further, since it talked about midway point, 3 years into it, that there was the temple. And we'll get into whether or not I'm buying into her 70th day being split between the time of Jesus and the current time. I'm buying into that. It seems to fit. I'm trying to prove it wrong. That's how you try to prove something right, is try to prove it wrong. And I can't. So I think that that's a pretty valid deal. But since the first part before the abomination, it doesn't really tell you anything about it. So whether it's got an assignment that you can say it's part of the 70th day or the 70th week, or whether it's just on its own, just our normal time, it doesn't matter. It just means there's less time till the second coming, and it means there's more time to allow these things to unfold. So we very probably have the rapture coming up this fall. Not necessarily on the Feast of Trumpets, but that would certainly welcome in the age. We're probably looking at tabernacles. It's going to have something to do with the temple. It's going to have to do with Satan casting his angels down, which we will see here eventually. He knows that he's ready to take over and start fighting. So he's going to cast a third of his angels down with the sole purpose of killing us. If he wants to kill Jews too. He's going to go after the mother, Israel, and us, the child. So that's what's basically the trigger for the rapture. And Israel's going to suffer some major damage, and there's going to be a remnant that's going to be separated across and go out to the east. There's going to be an earthquake, open up a path. It's going to be interesting times. But Satan knows that he's almost got the key to the city, almost. And while he's waiting, the harlot is continuing to convert the world, the Great Reset. It's going to continue. Fight your individual battles, but don't be disappointed when you lose. God is going to give him the ability to basically do anything he wants, short of killing us, short of killing off all of Israel. But he's going to basically punish the whole world, and there will be blood of martyrs on the harlot's hands. And when the harlot is done as much as it can, the Antichrist is going to kill the harlot. And the harlot is, in Mystery Babylon, the harlot is not a person, it's a organization, a worldwide organization that wants to set their world up for us. Okay, since I can include a picture, I'm going to include a page out of Brenda Weltner's book, essentially, booklet, that has all the information in there that you need. It talks about Revelation, everything you need. It's got multiple timelines for different things. And there's a timeline in there that has to do with F. You know, the ending is 2026. And then there's a section for if it's 2027 or 2028. There's multiple timelines in there, so you got to kind of pick the one that's going to fit. And we don't know which one it's going to be until we see the major things that are listed, until we see the seals for sure and the trumpets. When we start seeing those things, we know. If you see the abomination of desolation, you know, but there has to be a temple. And it doesn't have to be a full temple, it can be a tabernacle. So the bottom line is here is that, oh, what is this? There's a bunch of kids going, I think they're all going to the showers. We have the most kids in here that I've seen. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with one adult, and this other group just moved in with 4 or 5 kids, including a baby, which I think is going home today. I don't care. I have my earplugs and my Bose noise-canceling headphones, so I can ignore all this. And I usually go out for a hike, so it's not a problem. All right, so let's continue on. I am going to reread chapter 8, verse 1 to get us into this. But before I do that, I'm going to read the commentary. I always try to read some of the commentary. Anyone who's part of a church knows that the people of God are far from perfect. The church's one great hope is the second coming of Jesus Christ. And we're all looking for it. And 99% of all the stuff you read about Jesus coming back is about the second coming, not about the rapture. And that's why so many people have tried to predict, because they start mixing and matching and it doesn't work. Paul talks about the rapture. Christ does not talk about the rapture. He's talking to the Jews about him coming back. They were expecting him to come back in a week. He says, I'm going away. Well, they expected him to go away, go have dinner with his father, and then come back and conquer Rome. He didn't do that, but that's what they were expecting. So when you read Matthew 24, he's talking about that. Okay. The powerful teacher and Savior Jesus Christ led an utterly unique earthly ministry during his first coming. He will return to the earth at the end of the time and collect his people. First, the dead in Christ will rise to meet him. Next, those believers who were alive will follow. Paul told the Thessalonian believers to comfort one another with these truths about themselves and their loved ones who had died in Christ. Everybody, all Christians that have died throughout history, all faithful that have died throughout history. That includes Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the whole hierarchy there. We're going to all be able to sit around and eat together, fellowship together. Okay, chapter 8. When he'd opened the seventh seal, there was a silence in heaven for about a half an hour. I suspect, because everything else seems to be literal in Revelation, that this is a true half hour. It's just a little, haven't you ever had a moment of silent prayer, someone at work has passed away, or maybe a celebrity or a political leader, and you have a moment of silence. This moment of silence is for the earth. And I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another angel having a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. The temple has pretty much all this stuff in it, so it's kind of a copy of that. And the smoke from the incense with the prayers of the saints ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. This is going to be interesting. And there were noises and thunders and lightnings and an earthquake. So the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. I wonder if they're up there tuning them like you would a band. Now, my guess is that at this point in time, this is for the Jews, so this is probably centered around Jerusalem. There's going to be a lot of earthquakes in that area, more so than they've been for a long time. So the first trumpet, the first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. And a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. This is going to be big time on the earth. A third of everything's going to be destroyed. Green. Okay, the second trumpet. And the seas were struck, and the second angel sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. A big volcanic eruption. It's happened many times in the past to this planet. And a third of the living creatures of the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. I've got sailing friends out there that they better be aware of this. If you are and you see some of this stuff starting to happen, get to your land base. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference. If you've missed the rapture, you're in for it. And this is basically past the rapture. Again, this is an overlay. And I need to go ahead and put that overlay up so you can see what's happening. So I'm going to stop here, I'll put the overlay up, and then I'll come back. Okay, you can see that timeline. And you can see where the seals are, and some of them are real close together, and you can see where some of the trumpets are, and they're really close together. Others are spread out over time. So this is going to be a boom, 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 boom. You're not going to be able to go, we made it through that, I can rest for a bit. No. The purpose of all these things happening is to shake people. It's to grab them by the shoulders and to shake them and go, why don't you accept Jesus? Get off the fence. Laodicea was sitting on the fence, and it made God sick. This is all to just kind of wake everybody up and say, look, this is your last chance. You're running out of last chances. As soon as all these things are over, as soon as the bowls are over in the last rapture, God is going to come back, and at that point you have no more options. There's only 2 choices in life. Eternity with God in heaven, or eternity with Satan in the fiery pit. That's it. 2 options. If you think this world is what you want to live on for the rest of your life, it's not going to happen. In fact, it's going to be destroyed. You've got to pay attention. You've got to make up your mind. And if you've already made up your mind, great. But tell your friends and family, same thing. They have to know that they only have so much time. Now, I like Brenda's tribulation split, 3.5 and 3.5 now. But even if it were 7, and you're not going to give on that, the maximum time left as soon as this starts happening would be 7 years. Intermixed with all this trouble. Okay? Now we have our 3 different rapture believers. We have our pre-trib rapture believers. We have our pre-wrath. There's the one that's also in the middle, but basically pre-wrath. And then you have one at the end. The problem is they're all right because there are 3 raptures. Okay? We're going to have one pre-trib, pre-second half trib. And the only part that's really called the tribulation is the second half. It's called the Great Tribulation, where they have the wrath of God. The first half doesn't have a name. You can't call it part of the tribulation. It's part of the 70th day. I mean, the 70th week. I keep saying 70th day. It's the 70th week, but it's already happened. Okay. I'll have to go through and study Brenda's teachings on that a little bit more. You can go over and watch her channel, Brenda Weltner. I'm not going to put a link up. She's the only one in there. Just search in YouTube for Brenda, Brenda Weltner, Weltner. You can't miss it. She posts every 2 or 3 days something right now, and she's primarily on the book of Revelation, but she goes back and looks at the other books that have, references in Revelation. So it's a complete study. It's not just the book of Revelation. It's it and its supporting verses in the Bible. And she's very good on this stuff. This was not my intent to teach this stuff. My intent was to basically warn everybody, like John the Baptist. I didn't expect to be doing this for a year or two. Yes, 2 years now. And I didn't expect to be doing a video every day. I knew I couldn't come up with enough material to do a video every day. So God is supplying this, and I'm grateful. I didn't do a video every day initially. It was like a couple a week, 2 or 3 a week. But I was pretty much working 3 to 4 days a week in my acting bit. So now that I'm not doing that, I've got more time. All right, let's get back into this. If you've looked at the chart, and if you want to keep a copy of it, do a print screen. Do a print screen and save it to a PDF file format. If you don't know how to do that, I don't know how to tell you, but do a print screen and save it to whatever file format it will let you save it. Save it on your desktop so you can find it easily, and give it a name if it doesn't have a name. Okay? That way you know how to find it. Learn to use these tools, and if you can't figure it out, go find a 3-year-old. Okay? All right, so let's look at the seas were struck in the second trumpet. The third trumpet, the waters are struck. And the third angel sounded, a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell through a third of the rivers and on the springs of the water. The name of the star was Wormwood. And a third of the waters became wormwood, and many died from the water because it was made bitter. Now we're told that there's a almost positive confirmation of an asteroid hitting the Earth in 2029. Is that wormwood? It's close, but it's not exactly the right time frame. Because in order for this to happen in the right time frame, this should all end in 2028, not 2029. Maybe their calculations are wrong. Maybe it's going to get bumped a little bit on the way and come in a year early. I don't know. And the other thing is that these astronomers tell us that they're only seeing the tip of the iceberg on what's flying around out there. If something comes from the sun is so bright, they can't see it until it's inside the sun's orbit, and then they can see the silhouette blocking the sun. But if it's on the other side coming at us, we won't know. It takes 7 minutes for the light from the sun to get to us. So if an asteroid's flying, quarter of the speed of light, 1% of the speed of light, do the math. We only have days if they see it. So something could still be coming in that's not the one that they're seeing. And there could be, asteroids coming in, there could be meteors coming in. We get them all the time. And when we see the stars fall from heaven, well, that could be doing some damage as well. They may be angels coming down, they may be demons coming down, but they may be real objects. Okay. The fourth trumpet, the heavens struck, and the fourth angel sounded, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, and a third of them were darkened. A third of the day did not shine. We've seen this before, haven't we? In the seals. And we've seen it in Matthew. So we can line these things up. And I looked and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because the remaining blasts of the trumpet of the three angels who are about to sound. Everything gets progressively worse. Pay attention, world. Pay attention, world. Pay attention, world. It's going to get louder and stronger and harder, and only those that are completely pure evil at the very last are going to be defiant. Those that belong to Satan and really should follow him into the lake of fire. If you're that evil that you're not going to accept God towards the end, you deserve the lake of fire. And we have people on the earth that are as bad, as evil as Satan. They've spent their whole life worshiping Satan, worshiping the world. So he's going to take people with him, not just his angels. It's going to be too late. Okay. Here's the big one. The fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven to earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. He who opened the bottomless pit, I can't imagine what this would be, but it's been holding, it's the maximum security prison that God's created for the bad, the worst of the worst. Who would you put in a maximum security prison here on earth? The really big bad guys. Because you don't want to get them, they're not going to get out ever. Well, they're going to be released here. He opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit, and out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth. It's figurative, probably. If these are real locusts, then there are some kind of a special breed of locusts that are too painful to release on the earth. We know about the killer bees that are more dangerous than normal bees. Well, these might be killer locusts. And to them was given the power of scorpions on the earth. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth. Locusts eat plants, or any green thing, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. The seal of God on their foreheads. Do you see where Satan is copying again? Because he's not original. Okay, and the ones that have to be sealed are the 144,000 and the Christians that accept Christ during all this. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Scorpions flying around, basically, stinging people, tormenting. The torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man, and in those days men will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee them. So here's what these locusts look like. And the shape of the locust was like horses prepared for battle. They've got armor plating over the sides of them to protect them. So these are going to have some kind of armor over these locusts. And they had hair like women's hair, and teeth were like lion's teeth. And they had breastplates like plates of iron, and the sound of their wings were like the sound of chariots with many horses running into battle. Bzzz, just really, you're going to hear them all around you. Their power was to hurt men for 5 months. And then, as king over them, the angel from the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek it has the name Apollyon. So you've heard those before. Well, he comes out of the pit. And one woe is past. Behold, still 2 more woes are to come. The first woe is so bad people want to die. We got 2 more woes. And these are just the trumpets. Then the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, "Release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." So the four angels who have been prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year were released to kill a third of mankind. I told you we're going to lose a quarter in the seals. Here's a third. That's about half if you put them together. Now the number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. China can muster that. I don't know who else can muster that unless they start recruiting now. But China already has that, so it could be from them. I don't know. And thus I saw the horses in the vision. Those who sat on them had breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth blue, and sulfur yellow. Red, blue, and yellow. Think about whose colors those are. And the heads of the horses were like heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and brimstone. But these three plagues, a third of mankind was killed by the fire and the smoke and the brimstone which came out of their mouths, for the power is in the mouth and the tails. The tails are like the serpents, having heads with them that they do harm. So this sounds like massive killing. I don't know. Called plagues. Is this, thermonuclear war, or is this, war of mass destruction, weapons of mass destruction? I don't know. It doesn't matter. We know what the outcome is. But the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of the works in their hands, that they should not worship demons, idols of gold, brass, silver, stone, and wood, which can neither see nor hear nor walk, and they did not repent of their murderers or their sorceries or their sexual immoralities or their thefts. After all this, they still won't turn to God. Their hearts have been so hardened that they just won't. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. We're not going to see this. And if you go back and look at the timeline, you're going to see that these things happen throughout the remaining time period that we have. They're probably going to start, everything's going to start before the 3.5 year period, because that's the time that the abomination happens and there has to be a temple. But because we are short on time, I don't see where we're going to be building a rock temple, a stone temple. They're probably going to erect a tabernacle, and then they're going to come back, and maybe later on their plan would be to do the rock temple, but they're probably sharing the Temple Mount. Hosts are going by to check on everybody. Okay, and we're now in verse 10. The verse 9 was the bottomless pit. I'll go back in and flag these if I do my editing right. And I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloth, and a rainbow was on his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. And he had a little book open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and on the left foot on the land, and he cried with a loud voice, and as when a lion roars. And when he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Now there were 7 thunders uttered. Now when the 7 thunders uttered, this is repetitive. I didn't write this. When he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Now when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven say, seal up the things which the 7 thunders uttered. 3 times, really? We're supposed to get that, I guess. And do not write them. And the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised up his hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created the heavens and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it, that there should be no delay. Not any longer, but in the days of the sounding of the 7th angel, when it is about to sound, the mystery of God would be finished, and he declared his servants, the prophets. Okay, do I have time to get, I don't think I can get to the Revelation 12, but since we've done the seals and they went to the end, we're going to do the trumpets until they go to the end. Then we're going to see the rapture. We're going to see Satan thrown out of heaven. We're going to see the Antichrist show up. We're going to see the 144,000. And then we're going to get, and because the Antichrist is visible now and here and doing his thing, we're going to see the abomination of desolation. And then we're going to see the bowl judgments. And those are going to go, again, overlapping all the way to the end. Okay, so a lot of this is going to seem repetitive when you look at it from the point of view that it's happening in layers, which compounds the problems. It is not just they're dealing with the one trumpet. They could be dealing with a trumpet and a bowl, or 3 trumpets and 2 bowls. They're going to, look at the timeline that Brenda's put together. I haven't researched everything in that, but what I have looked at, it looks good. It's prophetic. And the only way that we can calculate, and I've kind of said this in the past, but I make sure I point out, she points it out, is that the only way you can calculate this is to calculate back. So if we're using the timeline of the fig tree, 70 to 80 years, if we look at that time frame, we can only go out to 2028, 48, 28. So it has to end in 2028. So if you figure that that's when God or Jesus returns for the second coming, then everything has to calculate back from that. And we're told that, it's 3.5 years to the middle of a abomination, desolation time frame. And you can see everything else kind of in that. And you can see where the sun being dark and the moon and all that kind of stuff, we can see where that's happening towards the end. Then you can kind of calculate these things out. There's still some variable time frame. We can place them in this general quadrant of the time, but to say on this particular date it's going to be hard unless it coincides with a feast day. Then we can maybe place it. Now the rapture has no placing. You cannot place it. You can place it in a general area. It's going to happen because of Satan coming back with his angels. So somewhere in that time frame. If we're talking a week or a month or two, if we're being raptured, it is getting bad. So hold on and be prepared. We're looking for this September, this Feast of Trumpets, to announce the final stages. I don't think we're necessarily getting raptured there. We might not get raptured until Tabernacles, because that's an 8-day event. And when a child is born, he stays with the mother for 8 days, then is circumcised and given a name. So if we're going to be born into our new bodies, Tabernacles would be a good time for that. So somewhere between September and middle of October would be a range that we can kind of look at. And we're going to have Satan thrown to earth, or come down here with his angels, throwing his angels to earth. And then shortly thereafter, he's going to be thrown to earth. He's going to manage the beast. All right. Okay, so we have the little book. And a voice which I heard, this is in verse 8 of 10, from heaven, spoke to me and said, "Go, take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel who stands on the sea and on the earth." So I went to the angel and said, "Give me the little book." And he said, "Take it and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter, but it will be as sweet as honey in your mouth." And then I took the little book, and I ate it, and it was sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach became bitter. And he said, "You must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. That's everywhere. Tell everybody about all this stuff. And then I was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood, "Rise and measure the temple of God, the altar, and those who worship there." This is in heaven, because they're going to copy it. "But leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given over to the Gentiles." That's why I think they're going to share the Temple Mount. The Muslims are considered Gentiles because they don't follow the true Jesus. They don't follow the true God. They've got a copy. It's not the real one. They're going to be very happy when the Antichrist shows up, because that's going to be their version of Christ that they're looking for. "And they will tread in the holy city underfoot for 42 months, and I will give power to the 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees which the lampstand standing before God of earth, and if anyone wants to harm them, fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies, and if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this manner. These have power to shut heaven so that no rain falls in the days of their prophecy, and they have the power over waters to turn them to blood, and to strike the earth with all the plagues as often as they desire." You can see where we kind of get Ezekiel and Moses. Other people say it could be Enoch. He didn't do these type of special. I'm getting tired. What's the word I want? Well, they had the gifts to do these miracles, and that's what they did back then, and it looks like they're going to be back to do them again. I woke up at 2 this morning. I don't know if something woke me up or I just woke up, so I'm just kind of, my coffee just wore off. I could feel the energy level going doom. So I got to finish this so I can go get another cup of coffee. Okay, I'm going to probably reread that when we get back on the 2 witnesses, because it's important to see where we're going. So I'm going to mark this, and that's where we're going to continue when I come back. But we've basically, we haven't had the 7th trumpet yet. That's going to be after the 2 witnesses, but that will be the end of the trumpets. And then we're going to get the Revelation 12 sign. So we go all the way to the end. Then we get the Revelation 12 sign, the rapture where the dragon goes after Israel, the mother, and comes after us, and that's where we get raptured because of that. And then, after that, Satan will eventually get thrown out of heaven completely. The bum has been living up there. He comes down here and torments us, and then he goes back and lives in heaven. He doesn't care about you or me or anybody. He cares about his power. Okay. It's getting close, guys. Until we meet in the clouds, God bless.